Being physically prepared for the United States Marine Corps Officer Candidate School is essential. For most people, it is the biggest obstacle that they face during their preparation. Most people, however, they focus on the physical fitness test, the PFT, because that is the initial hurdle that you need to pass in order to get selected on the board, to get on a board. And a lot of people, they think just doing well on the PFT, that will translate to success at OCS. But this is not the case. In this video, I'm going to go through what I did to prepare for the PFT, my experience with my physical fitness preparation, and how I felt like my physical fitness preparation translated to me being a successful candidate at OCS. Preparing for the PFT originally was that took a while for me. I was a pretty physically fit guy. I remember thinking whenever I heard the standards for the PFT, I thought, okay, well, pull-ups. I don't have much experience with pull-ups, but like I said, I'm physically fit. I'll probably be able to do it. At that point, it was crunches, and so I thought 120 crunches in 2 minutes. That sounds easy enough. And then the run, I ran cross country in high school, and I could always get around 24 minutes back then. I was mistaken. The PFT and preparing for the PFT was quite an experience for me. I remember going out there my first day trying to do pull ups, and I could only get like two pull ups, and they weren't even pull ups, they were the chin ups. And then I remember trying to do crunches with my brother, and I think I got to like 50 before I gave out. And then the 3 mile run, I could still get around 23, 24 minutes. But I knew in order to be at the higher end of my class, which is what I desired, I needed to get it down closer to 18. And so, I had a decision to make. How was I going to prepare? And one thing that I did was just high repetitions and everything. A plan that I always followed was a modified Murph, if you will. Every day, I would do 100 pull ups, 200 push ups, 300 crunches, and then 300 squats, and I think 500 jumping jacks. And I would break these out in increments of 10. So every round, it would be whatever the total in hundreds divisible by 10, and I would do that. Again, I said I could only do two pull-ups, and so I got a friend who he would come out there with me. And at first it was me getting up on the bar, doing my two pull-ups, and then I would extend my legs. He would put his knee right underneath my legs, and I would raise up, and I would just do the rest of my pull-ups like that. And eventually I developed those lat muscles, and I was able to do more and more. I think it took me 2 months of preparation in order to get to around 15 pull-ups, which at that point, I remember that was the biggest stress in my preparation, was just trying to do the pull-ups. Um, at the first PFT I did, I think I got like a 250 something. I think I had like 17 pull-ups, 80 something crunches, and then I ran like an 18 something minute run. Now, how I did my runs, honestly, I just ran every single day. I would run 3 miles at a minimum. And running as I ran and as I did these Murphs, which I mean, to do that would take me sometimes up to 2 hours to do, I began to lose weight. And I think whenever I started my preparation, I was around 190. And at the end of my total physical preparation going to OCS, I was close to like 160. So I lost quite a bit of weight. And I think that helped my running. Another thing that helped my running was just doing sprints. I knew that in order to average a 18-minute mile, I had to run a 6-minute mile, or 18-minute 3 mile, I had to run a 6-minute mile. And so I knew in a quarter of a mile, that would be a minute and a half. And so what I would do is I would run as fast as I could for a quarter of a mile, track that down, and then whatever I got, I would rest for that amount of time. So if it was 2 minutes, I'd rest for 2 minutes and then do it again. And I would do that for about 2 miles. I did 8 reps of that. 8 reps of a quarter of a mile. And by that time, I was completely toasted. And I did that more and more. And then I guess with the progression of losing weight, eventually I was able to get down. I think running, however, is one of those things that some people are naturally gifted with, and then some people aren't. But I think with hard work, anybody can get below 20 minutes. I will say 18 minutes, even for me, that's when I'm at an extreme level of my physical preparation. Um, the crunches, the crunches were always the hardest part for me. I think it was just I have the body like a orangutan. I just have a long midsection, and for whatever reason, it took me months to get to 120 pull-ups, or excuse me, 120 crunches, and that was I was getting there, and the time was just stopping. So some people they say the crunches is the easiest thing for them. For them, the crunches were the hardest part for me. I remember my PFT, my second PFT that we did, and it wasn't the one for board, but every time I did a PFT with my OSO, I treated it like it was going to be my final PFT. And I think I got up to like 25 pull-ups. At that point, this was like 3 or 4 months in, and eventually I was able to max out my pull-ups. My run, I think I got like a 18:30 something run, and then my crunches I got 120, and obviously I did it in the pull-ups, the crunches, and the run in that order. I never forget, I was really happy. I think at that point that was like a 290 plus PFT score, and my OSO came up to me and he's like, well, I'm glad you finally figured out the crunches situation. Oh yeah, by the way, they're switching to the plank. And I was like, oh, great. This is fantastic. I just, the moment I figured out the crunches, now we're going to switch in Marine Corps fashion. But I remember the plank, that was a blessing because the plank to me is the easiest part. And we were doing at that point, it was like a 4 minute and 20 second plank. And I think now it's like 3 minutes and 45 seconds. So to me, the plank's easy. I always max out the plank. The preparation I will say with the planks, you will hear this all the time, are mental. If you can just get, if you just tell yourself, hey, I'm going to get to 3 minutes and 45 seconds, I think that's how you prepare for it. You just get there, you get down, and you just keep pushing yourself further and further and further. And for me, eventually, I think it was within 2 weeks, I was maxing out my plank. So, you know, uh, I can't really give much advice for the plank. I think if you strengthen yourself with your pull-ups, doing push-ups, because for me the it ain't really my core that hurts in my planks, it's my shoulders and sometimes even my legs. So I think if you between running and doing pull-ups and other exercises for strength conditioning, I think eventually your plank will get stronger. But my final PFT for board, I did my 23 max pull-ups, and anytime I get 23, I just go ahead and hop off the bar. To me, there's no point of getting more. Maxed out the plank, and then I think on my final PFT, I got like a 17:30 or something like that. So got my 300 right before the board, and I was very confident that whenever the board came a few weeks later after that, that I'd get selected, and God willing, I did. So, yeah, as far as preparing for the PFT, it's a lot of hard work. But if you put yourself on a healthy regimen, you eat healthy, you run, you really train your pull ups and your plank, like I said, it's just a mental game. I think you'll be fine. Now, preparing for OCS in general, just preparing for the PFT is not enough. You have to do more. And I will say the best exercises that I did were definitely my Murph workout. I thought that made me more than prepared. And I was always at the top, at the higher end of the class at OCS as far as my physical fitness. Um, like I said, if you can do at OCS, it's more about a lot of sets, but low repetitions. What I mean by that is what they will really make you do is a lot of fartlek type exercises where you're running for a short distance, doing like 15, 20 pull-ups, and then going to do something else, doing 15, 20 push-ups, going to do something else, and then so on and so forth. And so I thought my Murph exercise really helped me with that. I felt more than prepared on my pull-ups. I think if you have a high pull-up count, you will be successful in other areas. And not only that, I was really training for specific events. So the obstacle course, that was something that I trained for. And it wasn't that I went out and found an obstacle course and trained on it, but I trained certain things. So I knew, for example, I watched the videos, and I knew one of the first things I could do to gain an advantage is the college boy roll. And so all you need to do is find a pull-up bar and try that. And with the college boy roll, it took me just getting used to going over the bar and being upside down. That was my biggest thing. I highly encourage you to watch videos on how to do it. It's really a core exercise. If you have a strong core, you should be able to do it pretty easily. But you just take it how I did it is I take it, I pull up slightly just like right here, and then you just push your knees as high as you can. And whenever you get to that point, hopefully your momentum of your legs going up, you will fall back with your back, and then it should make you fall over. And I know it's me like trying to use words to explain something as complicated as it, but watch videos. It took me like a day to figure it out, and it was just getting the confidence to really execute that. And I highly encourage you to go out there with a friend who can, at least on the first ones, like push you up so you can at least get that feeling of being kind of upside down for a second and then swinging through and going. So that's one thing I did. And then, like I said, a lot of the obstacle course and including the e-course, it's just the strength that you have from your pull-ups. So if you're strong on your pull-ups, I think you're going to be strong in a lot of other areas. Also, you're running. OCS, you have to be good at running. You have to be good at running. I said it in my OCS experience video that I think if you're under 21 minutes, you're probably fine. If you're under 20 minutes, you're probably at the top end of the class, and the closer you can get to 18 minutes, you're definitely at the top end of the class. I don't think you have to have 18 minutes. I think 18 minutes is good, especially with the board if it's competitive. But yeah, I don't fear if you're like at 19, 30, or 20 minutes. I think you're still going to be fine. Um, Another thing I did was training for the hikes. Now, I don't think you need to go out there and hike 20 miles, but I do think it's important to get at least some weight on your back. Find some type of backpack where you can put 50, 60 pounds in it at most, and then hike for, I'd say at most 9 miles, because that's the longest hike I think you do at OCS. Um, the hikes at OCS are not that hard. They're going to, I remember that every hike feels terrible at the beginning, at least for me. The beginning 3 miles are the worst, and then you kind of get acclimated to it and it gets easier. But for OCS, I don't think you need to worry too much about the hikes, but I will say at least get some type of weight on your back and be ready to do that. Um, Fartleks are a great way to be physically prepared. I'd say that that's probably the most accurate way to get prepared for OCS. Running half a mile, a quarter of a mile to half a mile, at most 3/4 of a mile, stopping and doing 3 minutes worth of exercises. Whether that's a max set of pull ups, whether that's 20 push ups, whether that's 30 crunches, whether that's a bunch of jumping jacks, squats, what have you, and then run and do that for 3, 4 miles. And I think that will help you with both the junior and the senior fartleks that you'll run, which again, like I said in my OCS videos, those were the fucking hardest exercises that we did at OCS. Um, and then the e-course, which was the first time we did the e-course, that was by far the hardest physical event we did at OCS. The first time, the second time was fine, but the e-course, if you can run with weight on yourself, like get a backpack, or if you have a flak jacket of some type, 20 pounds at most, 30 pounds at most, and then just running like that for close to 3 to 4 miles, I think you'll be fine. But the e-course, what makes OCS is kind of weird is that you're going to, if you listen to what I'm saying, you're going to be over prepared physically. And then when you go to OCS, you're going to be doing their exercises, which usually is running. And one thing I noticed is that as I went through OCS, my pull ups started to get worse and my push ups started to get way worse. I remember one where I couldn't even do like 20 push ups because I just hadn't been doing them for weeks. And then by the time you get to the e course, like a lot of your physical preparation, if you over prepare like I did, you kind of fall back slightly and then you don't feel as physically fit. And that was the case for me, except running. OCS, you run a lot. Um, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't focus so much on trying to exactly replicate what you're doing at OCS. Running is important. Trying to replicate the fartleks can be important, but I think what's going to help you is strengthening yourself. That gets me to the last point, weight training. You have to hit the gym. You have to strengthen yourself, your legs, your especially your back, your arms, and all ways. So, if I could give one piece of advice, weight training, weightlifting, while incorporating running. And with all that, you have to diet. You have to diet well. You have to make sure you're eating healthy so that you're able to gain muscle, but not lose muscle because you're running so much. And that's a fine balance there. So I I will say the PFT is a good indication of where you're at with your physical fitness. I do not think there are very few people who can do a 300 PFT and then not excel at OCS. Um, However, just training for the PFT is not enough. You have to do more. And so use the PFT as a baseline. If you're at a 250 or less, you have to put in work. You're probably not even going to get selected on the board with that. I haven't heard of anybody. Um, when you get around the 270 plus, now you're in a good area. And if you're at a 290 plus, I think that's indicative of you being at the top part of OCS, which is what I wanted to do. So yeah, run, do exercises while you're running, and then incorporate weight training, and I think you're fine. Um, I wish you all the best of luck, those going to OCS or those trying to go to OCS. If you have any questions or any suggestions for future videos, please comment. I'm gonna try to do more videos um, about this topic, OCS, and then also incorporating myself in the Marine Corps and the fleet. But yeah, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a great day.